Welcome to this week's Traveling Young, 2 weeks in a row.
Oh my goodness.
This is all part of our goal for the year.
It's our goal for the year
Yeah.
to do better about posting.
And this week we're talking about Matador. I'm not going to say season 2 because last time I referred to it as season 1.
No.
And people we'll talk about that later. So
Round 2 of Matador.
Round 2, episodes 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12
Oh, so many episodes.
of Matador. Yes, the Danish classic. Part of your assimilation process into Denmark as an immigrant on this week's Traveling Young. All right, here we are.
We're back again. I am once again so proud.
Yeah,
We
6
powered
episodes.
through.
This time, I think last time we did it 3 episodes one night, 3 the next night. This time we spread it out a little bit through the week. But we did 2 yesterday and 2 today. Yeah, and real fast, there were comments. Let's respond to some comments from our first episode.
This is like corrections.
Number 1, corrections for the jackals, as Seth Meyers would say. I referred to it as season 1 because 6 episodes were aired 1 year, and then a year later, 6 episodes. And commonly, we would refer to that as seasons.
That'd be a season.
But I get that they were actually all filmed, I think, basically at the same time. I don't think they actually, renewed it season by season. So in my words, this is season 2, but it's the next 6 episodes.
Yes.
So there's that debate finished. Another debate that came up in the comments was the cultural relevance and ideas of what are some U.S. shows that could be considered as relevant.
Yes, this was
culturally.
a debate amongst ourselves.
Yeah, amongst us. But I mean, I agree that I think there's twofold. One is kind of the story concept of being a significant part of the history of the country and following families, and absolutely North and South is totally one of those kinds of shows.
That's a great miniseries.
I don't know if it's still available. I feel like I watched it either on Viaplay maybe. Like a couple years ago, I watched the first 2
Yeah, because I feel like people commented that they had watched North and South.
Because it was, at least before, available
really
here. The
good.
first 2, again, I'll say mini-series, as we would call it. Actually, in this case, it was a mini-series that followed Patrick Swayze, among other people, the most famous, and Kirstie Alley were the 2 most famous people that came from that. Actually, I think, who else? I feel like there was another... Anyway, doesn't matter. I feel like there was somebody else famous in there.
People in that, yes.
Anyway, that is similar from the concept of following families and like the drama part of it and history being but in terms of people like resonating and still, I don't think I went back and watched it because I'm just a Civil War buff, but I don't think my parents, for example, have gone back to watch it. It's not re-aired on TV. No. So the part 2 of that is just how it resonates still in society today. And I don't think North and South or Roots, which was another one that was mentioned. Oh, that was another MASH, these, I don't think they still are things that people watch today.
No.
But I think it's partially maybe because in the U.S. they're just inundated with so much content.
Yeah, and I also don't think it's something... I think the big difference, too, is like that it's something that people say you have to watch this in order to understand our culture. Like, I don't think we have anything necessarily to say maybe North and South.
Yeah, but that's a part of... I think that's to understand a very specific period of history, which then is not necessarily reflective in today's... Actually, some things maybe still come back, but
shaped our history.
Yeah, but I love North and South. So if you've not seen North and South,
you should watch it.
Watch North and South, and I think from a storytelling component, North and South is definitely the most similar.
Yeah.
So all that. Now let's get to the story. I'm going to let you start because I just say two things. I can't not talk. This happens to me in meetings at work too. If you invite me to a meeting, I'm going to talk. Don't invite me.
This isn't a sec. People make this comment all the time that Josh talks a lot and dominates the videos. We know this.
This is my life, by the way.
I've known him for 25 years. I absolutely know he does this. It does not... You get used to... I would not have married him if that bothered me.
Let's put it... And it's funny. This is not related to the... We'll just go on this topic for one other second. At work, we have a very open office area, and I work from home more now than I used to because I'm in meetings a ton with people outside of Denmark. And literally, like last time I was in the office, last Friday, one of my colleagues was like, messaging me on Teams because all the meeting rooms were taken when I started my meeting. Some had become vacant afterwards, but I was out in the open space in a meeting. Really loud. And he messaged me, he's like, can you go into a room? Because my voice is just, it's also loud. It carries very loud, which is, I consider it an asset, but I get it.
We know this about him.
Yeah.
We get it.
Yeah.
You don't need to make comments.
Also, to be fair, lately you've had a real bad cough, so I've carried the load of talking because you talking more in the past few episodes would have caused you to cough a lot more. So.
And I have a health thing going on, so talking exacerbates the problem, which makes me cough a lot. So he was trying to carry the load.
And by the way, I realized actually it's 3 weeks in a row. Sorry, I said 2 weeks, 3 weeks, because you've been coughing. Anyway.
Yes, I've been coughing for that long.
And I've totally now forgotten what it was I was going to say.
You were handing off to me to talk about
But then I was going to say one thing to say that, I know, it was going to be this 6 episodes, I feel it's so much more about the characters.
Yes.
Because everything's been established, the business. I mean, there's still obviously some things happening, but all the things happening from a business standpoint are more intertwined with the characters. Exactly. Whereas the first 6 episodes I thought were very much about establishing the business, what's Mads doing there, and all that stuff. But anyway, I will stop now.
I mean, I thought this was. I have to say, I had a harder time staying interested with this set of 6 than the last set of 6. I think some of it, I tried, I found it interesting that there were some episodes, it was really hard for me to understand what people were saying. There were some episodes it was really easy for me to understand what people were saying. Obviously I'm watching with subtitles, but I think you did fairly well not fully being able to understand what people were saying or understand the subtitles. But you followed along pretty well and figured things out.
I was I would read a short synopsis that I would find online before each episode so I can know what to look out for. And then after I'd read something much, much longer.
Yeah.
And so the challenge I had was there's very significant things in the story.
Yeah.
By the way, spoiler alert if you're like 30, 40 years behind.
Even more.
Significant things in the story that I could tell, like, there was a lot of crying and people breaking up, so I could tell when, like, Matt's brother and Elizabeth break it off. That's obvious.
So terrible.
And then, like, when Hans Christian and his mistress break off and she leaves work, and then when she comes back and says that, hey, she's got a baby in tow, like, that stuff I could tell. It's pretty clear because of body language and certain words. I can get that, but there's so many more
little things,
details around like. The whole thing about drawing the portrait, about Matt's hiring the artist.
Secretly, he was the anonymous buyer of the portrait, and that was.
I didn't totally get that. I was busy with the whole scandal of like
Hans Christian.
No, the girl and the painter, and then Maud, who used to be dating the painter, showing up. I was like in that story,
Gita,
and all the little bits of stuff. I didn't really, and plus she was the one that what Hans Christian's brother was with.
Yes, she was.
That caused him to get a divorce in the first 6 episodes. So that's the stuff I was able to follow.
Yeah.
But the little bit of details around that and this whole like.
Yeah, I think the person I had the hardest time understanding was the new, basically like board member, the new bank director that had come in and was helping Hans Christian with the bank and stuff and kind of scheming against Mass. And he was the one that I had the hardest time following. But I thought it was interesting that they were like, there was this whole thing with the land note, that nobody could find this land note.
Which I didn't fully understand either.
So what happened, I read it
later, but in the moment I didn't understand.
But it was like, and then Tante Mula, she shows up and is like, it's in my security box. And so then they find this note, and I didn't quite understand what the issue was. I guess they had said that the land couldn't be sold, like it belonged to Missa or something.
From what I read, the land was meant to be allocated for like a statue or something about somebody.
Okay.
And by then reallocating the land for Mads to build his factory, then was like affecting like somebody in Han Christian family or something like it had to do. It had to do with the land was meant to be used for something and allocated to pay homage to somebody, and then by doing this, that couldn't happen, and that was a huge scandal. They then find out Mads was like paying for portraits of people in order to kind of like get favor, and all this like. But that stuff I didn't get at all. I had to read.
And then there was the whole scandal with Gottfried Lund, who he was severely in debt, and he switched banks. I think because he was very much in debt with Mass, and Mass said, "We'll come to my bank, and I'll kind of forget that if you help me get this land." And so he did, and then at the end of the day he still scurried off to Brazil with 80,000 krona. So there was that, and I guess maybe they were accusing Mass at some point of maybe possibly murdering him, like being a part of his disappearance.
Well, there's his Mads is very good at facial expressions, I would say.
He's very angry all the time.
That, or like he's very shocked, and so I could tell something's up when he does that. So also, I don't want to say specific words that YouTube isn't a fan of, but obviously things are brewing in Germany.
Yes,
and the party came up and did a march, and Mads' wife's ex-husband participated in that and showed up again. Drama with him, drama with Germany.
And so did Lars. He was carrying the flag, I think, one day.
But also the whole doctor who that Elizabeth, I guess, supported in terms of him also supporting terminating life, and how that kind of messed with her social status a bit. I mean, and then the fact that Hans Christian Andersen found out, or Hans Christian Andersen, sorry.
Hans Christian,
yeah, my mistake. That he then had this whole
the thing with
baby, and then he was in a situation that he needed to potentially very present day challenges in some cases when it comes to like people of power trying to hide stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
So that, I mean, I wish I understood more in real time, because there is some interesting. I feel, and this is another comment, because like the last episode we just watched, I read the whole thing page and a half ahead of time, so I could track it better when it was happening, and I realized there's a lot of things that, you know, the text I read talks about, but then it happens kind of behind the scenes, like somebody will make reference to something happening, and you don't actually see it happen. In you know, in like you don't ever.
They'll talk about it in conversation. So
they're like, oh yeah, somebody did this, and they're talking about it. And since I miss the conversation, sometimes it's hard to follow. Whereas if I visually see the thing happening, it's so much easier to grasp. So I think. You know?
So did you miss when? Oh gosh, I can't remember her name. Ingrid. Her father, who was the bank director for Korsback Bank, the new guy who came in, his daughter then got married with Christian, who was Mass's brother. And there was that whole conversation where he came in and I guess said, well, my daughter and your brother are now married, so I'm assuming they said, let's let bygones be bygones. We'll just drop it for the sake of them. And
that was also earlier. I think Elizabeth found out, and she was kind of like, "Wait, what?" When she came back from Paris.
No, it was after. But
and then also when the lady drank the hair stuff.
Oh my gosh.
If they physically showed that happening, I'd understand it. But I knew because I read it in the thing, and I
was like, "Oh no, did she drink the hair water?"
So it does, as a very good Danish, understanding Danish, these things that happen off screen are very tough to follow. Because I have to capture that in conversation versus being able to just see it and interpret just the body language and stuff.
Yeah,
you know?
I mean, I will say, I think it is good that it pushed, it just in terms of language, it pushed my Danish understanding. I relied heavily on the subtitles, but I think I did learn a lot of new words and things, and a lot of, I was getting better at kind of following the conversations and stuff.
So the only other thing I wanted to mention is, this time watching it, we now live in a house that's 100 years old, built in 1924, which originally, when built, would have been, for sure, really close to this time frame, heavily used.
Yep.
And it made, I was seeing things in the background that made me think like the windows are similar to our house, or well, we don't have obviously wallpaper. There's a little room going up to our attic space where they kept the wallpaper on there. Originally, we could see what it looked like in parts of the house. And it was interesting, and like the fact that all these rooms have doors to close, and they're very similar little details that I started paying attention to also in the background that I thought was pretty interesting because of the fact that we now live in a house that would have been used heavily in that time frame. I thought that was pretty interesting. And a couple of other like little things I saw culturally that I think is fascinating. One is there was one scene where this kid, one of the kids, I can't remember who, puts a bunch of pieces of paper on his bike. So when he rides his bike, it makes
it was just a friend.
This noise.
He puts cards on his bike.
And this is something that my dad's generation used to do with baseball cards, is they'd put baseball cards on their bikes. So when the wheels are turning, it'd make that noise. And I thought that was interesting because we did the same thing in the U.S., but we used baseball cards in that case. Another thing is they actually played the game Matador.
I was just thinking that they actually played the game Matador. And there was a whole plot line around the dad trying to get the doctor to give up one of his plots of land in Matador.
It's still unrealistic in that people appeared to be smiling when it looked like maybe 8 hours later.
Well,
and I feel
there was that whole scene where Hans Christian was not happy that...
I do feel like most Monopoly games with that level of people end with somebody just throwing the board away.
I think that was going to be Hans Christian.
It did make me think about how like we entertain ourselves today versus back then.
Yeah.
Like today we would sit around the TV as a family and watch a movie together or something like that. But back then, playing a board game and doing something like that, or Elizabeth playing music at the piano that everybody would play along with and sing along.
They played that dice game that one day with the kids.
So it was interesting to see like that difference in time and how people would entertain themselves together. And also how unrealistically happy people were very deep into a Monopoly game. And plus it was a circle versus a square like ours would be. Anyway, that's all I've got to say. Is there anything you want to...
I think we've gone on for... I feel like I have other thoughts.
16 minutes in-ish. So I hope you stuck around. Thoughts. If you did stick around, thank you. And watch the first one if you didn't see the first time we talked about it. And stay tuned. I'm not going to commit to when. We'll watch the next 6 episodes. This feels like once a year is the most I can commit. Maybe next time I'll understand Danish a little bit better than I do today. Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe.
And next time I think things are going to get juicy in the time frame looking into World War II and stuff.
I think it's getting juicier and juicier. It's going to be really interesting.
There you go. The next step forward in being a part of Danish society, watching Matador. There you go. The second set of 6 episodes that I mistakenly refer to as season 2.
We'll still say it. Season 2.
Season 2. Thanks for watching. Bye.
Bye.